Welcome to the Debatable Podcast. Look, if I told you that handing a wad of cash to some corrupt official was the single best way to build a hospital or get a business off the ground, you would probably call me completely crazy.
Well, I would call you someone who actually understands how the real world works.
No, you would be defending a mafia racket. In most of our minds, corruption is total poison, right? It is literally sand in the gears of the economy. It destroys growth, it crushes businesses, and it keeps people in poverty.
That is such a naive textbook fantasy. You are imagining this perfectly clean, well-oiled machine of an economy that, frankly, only exists in advanced democracies.
It is not a fantasy, it is just basic rule of law.
It is a luxury. Today, we are looking at real economic data that proves a very ugly truth. Sometimes you step into an economy where the engine is rusted completely shut. And in those environments, bribery is actually a bypass valve. It is the grease in the wheels that forces a broken, suffocating government to actually do something.
You are basically arguing that extortion is a public service. And that is the absolute core of our debate today. Drawing straight from the economic literature. Look, my stance is rock solid on this. Corruption is a cancer. It is a brutal artificial tax on businesses that starves the most vulnerable people.
And I am telling you that your pessimistic view is totally blind to reality. When a government is horribly broken, corruption is a vital survival tool. It lets entrepreneurs completely bypass dead-end rules and keeps the economy breathing.
Let's actually look at the ground level because your entire grease the wheels theory relies on this completely absurd myth. You think a bribe is like a fast pass at an amusement park.
It is a fast pass. You pay a little extra, you skip the impossible bureaucratic line, and the economy moves.
That is a lie. It absolutely does not move faster. The World Bank did a massive survey of businesses across over 100 countries, and the data absolutely destroys your fast pass idea.
Oh, really? Because intuitively, if a guy wants your bribe money, he is going to process your paperwork quickly so he can grab the cash and move to the next victim.
You would think so, but no. The data shows the exact opposite. If a firm is forced to pay a bribe, it takes roughly 1.5 times longer to get a basic construction permit.
You are totally misreading what that delay means.
I am not misreading anything. It takes 20 to 40% longer to clear customs. Corruption is not speeding up the line. Corruption is the exact reason the line is completely stalled.
You are making a huge, ridiculous assumption there. You are assuming that if they didn't pay the bribe, the permit would just magically get processed a little faster.
It would get processed eventually.
No, it wouldn't. In these completely dysfunctional states, the baseline is zero progress. Without the bribe, the delay isn't just longer. It is infinite. Your paperwork goes in the trash.
So you are saying a 20% delay is a bargain?
Yes, when the alternative is the government totally suffocating you, a bribe is the only way out. Look at the classic post-Soviet analogy, the St. Petersburg Bridge.
Oh, come on. Not the bridge analogy. It is a total fairy tale.
It is real economics. Imagine a bridge run by a totally broken, underfunded local government. They don't have the tax money or the competence to fix it. So the bridge collapses and all trade stops. Total disaster.
Okay, so the state failed. How does a corrupt guy help?
You put a deeply corrupt traffic guard on that same bridge. He demands illegal tolls from every single truck. Suddenly, this guy has a massive personal incentive to make sure the bridge doesn't fall down.
That is ridiculous.
If the bridge breaks, his bribe money dries up. He will actually use his own illicit cash to patch the potholes just to keep his little extortion racket running. He provides better infrastructure than the clean state.
You are praising a guy holding public roads for ransom, and you are totally ignoring how extortion actually functions. You think he just sets up one toll booth and calls it a day?
He keeps the trucks moving. That is survival.
It is a trap. Kaufman and Way studied this exact firm behavior. They found that managers who pay bribes end up spending way more time tied up in red tape, not less.
Why would an official want more red tape if he already got paid?
Because he knows you have money. The second you pay, you signal that your firm is highly profitable, so they don't let you cross the bridge smoothly. They build 5 more toll booths on the other side.
That is just one tiny piece of the puzzle. You are completely missing the big picture.
They literally invent new arbitrary rules just to hold you hostage again. It is mathematically optimal for them to delay you. They are pouring sand into the gears on purpose so they can charge you for a tow truck.
Look, I am not denying that some guys get greedy, but you are looking at individual trees and ignoring the massive forest. Let's look at the Kita and Lorila study. 99 countries, nearly a decade of data.
Oh, I know the study, and it does not prove what you think it proves.
It proves exactly what I am saying. They mapped corruption against the quality of governance, and the data flat out shows that when a government is totally incompetent, no rule of law, garbage regulations, corruption actively mitigates the economic damage.
That is a completely deranged claim. You are saying terrible government is cured by more corruption?
I am saying it lessens the blow. Think of a house where the front door is completely boarded up with impossible red tape. No one gets in or out. A bribe kicks open the back door, the economy survives because of it.
But who boarded up the front door? You are treating bad governments like it is just bad weather, like it just happened magically.
It doesn't matter how it got there. The friction is already there.
It matters completely. The bureaucrat boards up the front door specifically so he can charge you to use the back. It is generated friction. Decades of development economics prove this.
You are arguing theory. I am arguing reality, and we can prove it. Look at the mint countries: Mexico, Indonesia, Nigeria, Turkey. Huge emerging economies.
Yeah, let's look at them, because they tear your backdoor theory to shreds.
No, they absolutely validate it. The research on the mint countries shows a glaring split. In Nigeria and Turkey, which were harsh electoral autocracies, the economy grew directly because of corruption.
How on earth do you credit autocracy and theft for economic growth?
Because the formal systems were a joke. Bribes got roads built in Nigeria. Bribes launched telecom businesses. Foreign investment would have completely died waiting for a government stamp that was never coming.
That is completely unsustainable. You are looking at a tiny blip.
You cannot erase the massive GDP growth in Nigeria during that window. Corruption bypassed the roadblocks that the autocrats set up. It was the only way.
You are cherry-picking the data to an absurd degree. Look at the other half of that exact same study, Indonesia and Mexico. They had completely different institutional frameworks.
Exactly. In those two countries, corruption dragged the economy straight into the dirt. It is pure sand in the wheels.
And why? Because they were trying to build different systems.
Because the absolute second a country gets a shred of real democracy, bribes fight directly against progress. Look at Indonesia in 1999. They transition to democracy, they actually start jailing corrupt ministers, and boom, real, sustainable growth.
You are proving my point. Once you have advanced institutions, corruption is bad. But you are demanding the luxury of a perfect democracy in places that do not have one.
Relying on corruption in Nigeria just hid their endemic failure. It wasn't fixing anything.
In a second-best world, you do what you have to do. If we sit around waiting for perfect, clean governments to fall out of the sky, millions of people in the developing world will just starve to death.
Oh, stop. I am not saying wait for magic. I am saying do not actively feed a parasite.
Sometimes the parasite is the only thing making the host move. You completely dismiss autocracies, but you cannot wave away the Asian paradox.
South Korea is a completely isolated historical fluke.
It is not a fluke, it is the Asian tigers. South Korea had a massive economic boom under Park Chung-hee in the mid-20th century, and it was heavily, undeniably corrupt.
It was an authoritarian nightmare.
It was a structured, profit-sharing corruption model with massive companies, the chaebols. It built a global powerhouse.
Profit-sharing corruption? That is just corporate buzzword nonsense for massive kickbacks.
Mechanically, it worked. The government gave cheap credit to the chaebols. The chaebols paid huge bribes, but the state violently enforced export quotas. If a company didn't hit their global targets, they were cut off, bribes or no bribes.
So you're celebrating disciplined theft?
I am celebrating national economic output. It aligns the bureaucrats' greed with actually building the country. Formal bribery models show that corruption acts as a shadow market.
A shadow market?
Yes. When the state doesn't know which company is best, the firm willing to pay the highest bribe is actually the most efficient firm.
What? That is the most backward logic I have ever heard. The highest bribe means they are the most efficient?
Absolutely. Who can afford a massive bribe? Only a firm with huge operational margins. An inefficient firm goes totally bankrupt trying to pay it. So corruption mimics a competitive auction. It sparks entrepreneurial innovation.
Innovation? Are you kidding me? The firm that pays the highest bribe isn't the most efficient, they are the most ruthless.
They get the job done.
By cutting corners on worker safety? By using cheap, garbage building materials? That shadow market is just a massive tax that kills capital productivity.
But they are still building the infrastructure. A factory gets built.
At a totally destructive cost. Let me give you the actual numbers, since you love data. Every 1% rise in corruption causes a 3% drop in firm growth. 3%!
You are entirely ignoring the jobs created.
And you are completely blind to the victims.
Corruption steals directly from the poor, period.
Economic growth lifts people out of poverty. A bribe gets a factory built where there are no jobs. That factory hires 1,000 people. That is providing a livelihood.
You are completely ignoring the macroeconomic opportunity cost. What happens to states' money? Corrupt officials don't spend on public welfare. They spend on whatever gets them the biggest kickback.
The money gets spent on infrastructure.
It gets spent on vanity projects. If you are a corrupt minister, you can't skim 10% off a rural child vaccination program. It is too decentralized. It is too hard to hide.
So they fund big projects. That is still investment.
It is a total waste. They funnel the budget into a massive, unnecessary concrete highway because the pricing is totally opaque and a 10% kickback makes them a millionaire. They literally divert money away from schools and hospitals.
You are assuming that in a broken bureaucracy, the tax money would have magically gone to schools anyway. It wouldn't. It would be wasted in administrative friction or sheer incompetence.
So the solution is to let oligarchs steal it for a highway?
The public still gets the road. Yes, it wasn't the optimal use of funds, but that road connects villages. It facilitates trade. A bad road built on bribes is infinitely better than no road at all.
But they don't get a functional road. They get a crumbling disaster that washes away in the first rainstorm because the contractor had to slash his budget to afford the bribe.
It provides a baseline for commerce.
While the health system completely collapses, look at the Philippines. Public health research there proves that high corruption literally drops child vaccination rates.
Collapse is a massive exaggeration.
It drops school test scores. Patients can't get treatment in local clinics. The benefits do not trickle down in your magical shadow market. They flow straight up to a wealthy elite, creating a massive cycle of inequality. It is theft.
You are focusing entirely on the symptoms of the disease and ignoring the patient trying to survive.
I never said corruption was a public good. It is ugly. But the meta-analyses of decades of data show it is not purely destructive.
The data overwhelmingly shows it is a cancer.
Not in every region. In places with completely paralyzed policies, it lets people access markets they otherwise couldn't reach. Without the grease, these struggling nations would seize up entirely, leading to way more starvation. Regional blips don't validate a disease. Corruption rewards extortion, it stalls democratic progress, and it starves vulnerable populations to buy yachts for oligarchs. It is sand in the engine, and that is a hard fact.
And you are judging a totally rusted, broken machine by the pristine standards of some Western democratic bubble. When the institutions are paralyzed, that grease is the absolute only thing keeping the wheels turning for millions of people. It is about survival.
Well, we are looking at the exact same rusted engine, but diagnosing a totally different failure. The evidence is clear on my side.
And the real-world survival of these economies proves mine. Whether it's the mint countries or the Asian tigers, it is not as simple as your textbook wants it to be.
Our listeners will have to decide for themselves. Are we looking at a ransom note that destroys an economy or some bizarre bypass valve? Keep digging into the numbers we fought over today because this fight is nowhere near finished.